Yeah.
We have that person,
Big Ten.
we have someone in our office who's that way.
Yeah.
We ready? All right. This is the beginning of the Economic Development Committee meeting on September 26, 2024. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the July 25th, 2024 minutes. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from.
Second.
All right, motion passes. Second is a comprehensive plan update, Chapter 7, Housing Element, and there'll be a staff presentation.
Quick intro. So Laura Chico, I'm the Planning and Development Services Manager, and this is kind of the next in the chapters we've been working on a comprehensive plan update. This is the big lift. The housing element is, there's a lot of new state legislation, countywide planning policies, an additional level of review at the county. So we're lucky to have the same consultant, AHBL, that did our housing action plan. So got Wayne Carlson here to present, and it looks like they've got your PowerPoint up.
Yep. Okay. So some of this is a little bit redundant from some of the previous presentations, but for the public. But so the comprehensive plan is obviously a 20-year plan that shows how the city is going to manage growth and provide services over that period. The city of Des Moines is designated as a high-capacity transit community within PSRC's Vision 2050. So more growth is scheduled to come to Des Moines than perhaps cities and towns. They have these classifications all the way from metropolitan cities, which would be like Seattle, to core cities, to high-capacity transit. And then to the very smallest would be cities and towns. To that end, the city needs to plan for 3,800 additional housing units and 2,380 new jobs. And within those housing units, 726 net new permanent emergency housing units. And so emergency housing means temporary indoor accommodations for individuals and families who are homeless or in imminent risk of becoming homeless, and are intended to provide basic health, food, clothing, and personal hygiene. So you've seen this slide before, but tonight we're talking about the draft housing element. And just for public, there's a variety of elements. The housing element is a required element under the Growth Management Act. A few of these other ones, including some of the district-specific ones, are elective or not required. So as a point of a reminder, in just last year in 2023, the city adopted a housing action plan, and that housing action plan reviewed the community's housing needs and evaluated policies and summarized feedback to understand gaps and recommend solutions. And those recommendations included support and to create partnerships to address housing needs, supporting the acquisition and preservation of income-restricted rental housing units, amending the development code, removing barriers that in terms of regulations to support the development of a variety of housing types, and to reduce development costs for affordable housing. This graphic here, I think is important because it shows the income bands. So with this version of the periodic update, unlike previous ones, the Department of Commerce and kind of by extension PSRC and King County have identified that affordable housing needs to be provided for in a variety of income bands. And we discussed this in the Housing Action Plan quite a bit last year with you. But there are almost 1,200 units that would be in that 0 to 30 of AMI. and about 1,500 at the far other end, 1,538, greater than 120% of the, yes.
Just so everybody understands,
Yeah.
can you define AMI?
Yeah, it's the adjusted median income. So, yeah, so the median income being, King County, and taking that and looking at these various income bands. So, one of the things that I think Echo Northwest, in particular, kind of mentioned during the Housing Action Plan was that really anything below 80% AMI usually will require some kind of governmental intervention. The market won't kind of take care of it necessarily itself. So the housing element, as Laura indicated, has quite a few changes, and kind of throughout this process, it's in some respects felt like a bit of a moving target, meaning most communities, City of Des Moines included, began their comprehensive plans in say 22 or early 23, and then the legislature adopted a whole bunch of new housing legislation, and then King County also established a new program to review housing elements in particular, consistent with the countywide planning policies. And so that wasn't an initial process when this all began, but is part of it now. So again, the housing element contains, like the other elements, goals, policies, and strategies that the city can implement to achieve the housing needs that were identified on the previous slide. They must align with the countywide planning policies, as well as the Puget Sound Regional Council's housing targets. So we do have some kind of policy questions for you kind of at the bottom of this slide, but the first one being, is there additional level of detail for equity and displacement risk data in the appendix supported, and should it be a higher level of discussion, meaning we have additional detail that we did for the Housing Action Plan, or should we keep it kind of at a high level? The previous comprehensive plan was a kind of more of a visionary kind of document without some of that detail, and so that's one of the questions that we'll have for you. Is the inclusion and level of detail of the new goals and policies addressing fair housing and housing equity in line with your vision? And then third is the inclusion and level of detail of new goals and policies addressing the provision of middle housing in line with your vision.
So I do have a question about that.
Yeah.
We were provided a different set of policy questions in the packet, and so I wasn't prepared to answer the ones up on the screen. On page 7, I believe. Policy questions, does the council subcommittee support, it's a housing needs assessment, affordable housing question, and language about partnerships.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm looking, I didn't see those. Were those in the packet?
I think a lot of these questions here were related to specifically this first one about including the housing needs assessment in the back of the comprehensive plan.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the level of
The level of detail.
detail in the appendix. So I think the way it was written here was a little kind of more detail with respect to specifically kind of drilling down on what would be in the appendices or not.
Okay, so, go, do you want to say something, Harry? Okay, I think I'm done, I can't answer the question.
Sure, okay, yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I can answer that question, because I think the you know, the drivers that are addressing equity and displacement risk data, they're tending to drive where we're going with this. And so I do think that putting it at a higher level than in the appendix is important, so that we can expect people to have read and digested that part. I don't necessarily expect people to go back to an appendix, because that's just one more step. They want to look at it and get it. And so I think these are,
The body of the plan.
yeah, so much more so in the body of the plan. So, you know, in particular, I think that would be a plus if that was at a higher level of discussion, and to the extent that they're driving what we have to do. You know, even like what you just said about, you know, 80% AMI and less really needs some sort of government mandate to build that, or I forget exactly the word you used, or intervention, or intervention.
Right.
You know, in order to get those kinds of units built. Well, that goes directly to equity and displacement risk. And so, yeah, to the extent that we are required to do that, that's why we have to get to that government mandate. I think that needs to be a higher level discussion that everybody can see. So I would appreciate that being there. I do have some other questions. Are we opening this up for questions now, or are we just going to take these three?
Let's finish the
Yeah,
presentation. and
I
then
want to defer to the chair on
once
that.
once we get to next steps and done with that, then
That's
we'll
fine.
go in
Yeah.
deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the next steps will be to address, you know, your questions, comments, on this, both tonight and in future meetings. We'll be coming back with a transportation element, and then, just other things that are occurring. King County, the Affordable Housing Committee review of the plan, is in progress, and I think it goes before the committee next month. Draft letter. We've met with county staff, and the draft of the housing chapter, which is what they looked at, is at least at their very initial review is in very close alignment with the countywide planning policies, which is really good compared to, you know, other communities which have, you know, 2-3 page letters. So we'll also be doing, you know, SEPA review, providing, you know, Commerce. They'll be reviewing this, and then we'll be submitting this for advanced review, just to help facilitate certification, PSRC in advance, with the statutory due date being the end of the year. So.
All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation, and we'll open it up to questions from Deputy Mayor Steinmetz.
Okay, yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about ADUs. Under HB 1337, you know, there's sort of a mandate to allow that, but we've heard from members of the public that there is an impediment if we're requiring the ADU to have a separate utility tie-in. I wonder if there's some, is that true in our code? And I don't know for sure that answer. B, is there some way to find a middle ground where, you know, one ADU, perhaps attached or unattached to the existing building on a lot, could tie into the existing utility egress on that, but if you're building more than one ADU, they would have to be separate, including if you were to build one now and then build one later. Is there a way to sort of find the middle ground on that would allow one ADU unit at a relatively lower cost than it would be to go for multiple ADUs?
I think that's something we'll need to coordinate with the building department. That seems like more of a building code question. So definitely something that we can work through as we're working through that, how still work.
I think it's,
If I can speak to it,
You may
please. That poses a little bit of a problem with if you have a 200 amp panel that serves a house, and then to put a separate disconnect and another panel off of that, when you only have so much amperage space, that poses a bit of a problem for an ADU that might need maybe 150 amps or 100 amps to run that. So it's there's a little bit of a challenge electrically to deal with that.
yeah, I'm just trying to find if there's a middle ground here that can allow people to put the one unit on their property, if that's what they choose to do. But if they're looking to put multiples, then I don't think that's a viable approach for all the reasons that Jeremy's saying. And it would still have to meet code. I mean, if the ADU tying into the existing house that was there didn't, was drawing too much or just couldn't meet code, then the whole thing's got to be upgraded. But is there a way to finesse that one? And I don't know enough about this area to do that, but I think it's worth exploring, because I think that the idea of a lot of people may be interested in putting a single ADU on their property, and to the extent that they can do that, that would allow compliance with what we've been asked to do in ADU, without necessarily going to a whole, turning the whole character of the neighborhood into a lot of different units on what are already existing lots. Yeah, so.
It's definitely something we can look into as we're going into that, because this new bill will potentially allow, up to 2 accessory dwelling units on each lot. So.
Right, that's why and two, for the obvious reasons just explained, that's gonna draw a lot on the utilities. I don't know if one would or not, but at least that's a question we might be able to address.
Yeah, we'll look into it, because it could also, the solution could maybe vary depending on utility.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, what Councilmember Nutting was referencing was power, but certainly the connection charges for water and sewer can be certainly quite expensive, and maybe having separate bills for those isn't as important as it is for electricity. I don't know. We'll look into it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, is that it? Is it for you?
The middle housing bill, HB 1110, it seems to me it just essentially it eliminates single-family housing zoning for that, and you can really put up multiple units now on what have otherwise been single-family lots. Is that a correct interpretation?
Yeah,
Effectively.
yeah.
Effectively.
Yeah.
Mhm. And to what extent can we require that it meet the character of the neighborhood in look and feel to do that? And obviously, the utilities, if you're building 4 to 6 units, is going to be entirely different than building a single house. But we don't want to disrupt the look and feel of some of the neighborhoods if we can. Is there a way for us to address those issues, so it doesn't just look like plopping down very different kinds of housing in other neighborhoods?
Yes.
Without interfering with what they want to accomplish in that bill, because we can't do that.
Right, yeah.
And
You can have design standards that deal with the appearance of the structures. And one of the challenges we want to make sure is that it's very, very clear and can still be performed administratively. Because one of the other things that is an issue is Senate Bill 5290, which is the kind of the regulatory form chapter, which or section or new legislation, which stipulates various permit processing timelines for various application types, ranging anywhere from 70 days for kind of ministerial types and things that require, say, public hearings to be, as long as, 170 days. So, anyway, we need to make sure that the, review of projects based on, design and character can be done also efficiently, because, the state wants, housing to be brought online, if, quickly.
Mhm.
So,
So are those proposals coming at some point on how to do it?
Yeah, we're just kicking off the middle housing, process, and so, yeah, Saturday farmer's market will be there with the tent and, kind of start those discussions and.
Great. And then the one last thing is, on the less than 80% AMI housing, what are the tools that are available to local governments to help get that built? If we could get more information and a list of the tools that we can use in order to help encourage that,
yeah,
particularly in light of all the budget pressures we have otherwise.
yeah, we can get that. It's in the housing action plan, but we will add
Mhm.
it kind of into, based on the direction, Lisa, I'm hearing from you, but I'm guessing maybe both you as well, adding that detail that maybe was found in the housing action plan
Mhm.
of some of those strategies to more fully kind of explain and almost so that the housing action plan itself could, be retired rather than being referenced, and including kind of the richness of that into the discussion of how we kind of go about doing it, what those strategies might be. Because, yeah, it talked about, partnerships with organizations that are providing it, certainly removal of regulatory impediments that might kind of stifle the construction of essentially lower income housing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, we'll add that in, but, and provide that information to you.
Great, thank you.
Mayor, anything?
Thank you. Yeah, a few things. In regard to the timeline, you were just talking about code questions versus policy in the comp plan. So when the comp plan is done, is it possible that the comp plan could be completed and approved, but we would not have enacted any code changes? It would just be, this is the plan, and then it will be our job to bring forward code after the plan? I mean, I think I have assumed that this plan is gonna require some things, and that these codes would be brought to us before the plan was approved. So could you give some clarity on that?
So the majority of the House bills regarding accessory living units and regarding middle housing, those have a deadline of 6 months after the adoption of the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So typically that does follow. I mean, there are gonna be some other codes that we'll want, we're drafting some of these initial changes already, but
Okay.
that typically, even the ones that aren't specifically for those, there are gonna be some trickle-down changes based on this comp plan update that.
So all the energy's going into this now, and as soon as we get our approval, then the big task for staff is to begin bringing code to the council that complies with that list. Okay, thank you. I did have a question that I haven't seen yet, maybe it's in a different packet, about the high-capacity transit corridor, because we're, high-capacity transit community because of our BRT, because Sound Transit, the light rail, isn't in our community. So there are parameters around those light rail, those station areas, right, like 6 blocks. And I think when Vision 2050 was being created, there was a concern that it wasn't the intention to create long tubes of station area communities, right? The idea was to create nodes. And I'm just wondering, in all this reading, have they fixed that? For example, because there are challenges that with that, where you have a long skinny city, and then if we take our entire bus rapid transit route and create something that was intended to be a circle or a node, and then stretch it out across the entire city, top to bottom along 99, that creates it eliminates that transit-oriented community or transit-oriented development, right? It just kind of begins to sprawl that idea.
Yeah, it makes it
So,
more
did they
diffuse.
address that? And there are only, I think, 3 of us in the county, or 4, something like that, right? That are just high-capacity transit communities only that are facing this. So I don't know if anybody spent the time to,
No, I haven't seen that, addressed at all.
okay,
Yeah. I do know that, you know, as we've talked with, say, King County, and to a lesser extent PSRC, they, even though, for instance, the station that's being built near kind of the Lowe's, it's just outside the
College,
city, yeah. They viewed that as an opportunity for transit-oriented development, you know, within the city, kind of as a node, like you're describing. But I haven't seen anything that kind of explicitly, you know, discusses it being in kind of a more node format as opposed to kind of linear, which would be kind of consistent with the way that the transit is traversing the city right now.
okay. Just wanted to know if that was addressed. Then I do have a couple of short answers to those questions, if you want me to move forward on that.
Please.
Okay. Does the council subcommittee support the inclusion of the housing needs assessment in the appendix? I thought, well, what are the pros and cons? Why wouldn't we want to do that? I feel like, of course, but is there a reason why you wouldn't want to?
Well, I think some of the original direction was to kind of keep it, you know, the plan itself kind of very kind of direct, kind of maybe higher level without some of that detail. I think it certainly is valuable, kind of in terms of showing our work and all the work identifying what those needs were at this time.
So you're saying take that whole work, put it at the back of an appendix, and keep the reading cohesive and clear?
Well,
And not
yeah,
just
yeah,
put that
but-
whole
but-
document inside?
But I think, yeah, for the needs, for the housing needs assessment, which really is a lot of, you know, statistics and kind of data. Now, the housing action plan itself has a lot of goals and policies that I think we want to integrate into the plan. So I think what we want to do is take a lot of the data, which is in the housing needs assessment, which kind of gets to the demographics, the price of housing, you know, all of that. Maybe have that in the appendix, and then essentially cull the goals and policies from the housing action plan, and put those into the housing element, which will also add heft to it, but I think will provide the kind of the detail and the connections that you were describing a few moments ago. But the reason the question was specific to the housing needs assessment is it's a lot of just data.
Data.
Yeah, it's a lot of data. It's a moment of time, and if someone picks it up 5 years from now, it may not have a lot of connection to the current status, but of course, you know, the plan's not necessarily changing every year, and so then when you pick it up, you know, and do the next periodic update, you would, that could, you know, either, you know, go away completely or be replaced with a different housing needs assessment as a kind of support to your work.
Understood. I'm in
Yeah.
favor of that. That's fine with me. Do you need an answer from all of us, or?
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
And I think,
In the appendix
Mhm.
and the explanation,
Yeah,
in the
so,
body.
yeah, because the housing action plan was kind of two parts. It was the action plan and then the needs assessment. And we'll take the action plan and integrate that all into the main body.
I think the balance here has been keeping it readable for the public, but then there was a lot of specific questions that King County drilled down on in their review of this, and they wanted data. And so, and they wanted data in your housing element. And so how do you do that? Well, let's try, adding the housing needs assessment as an appendix.
Perfect,
So that we're ticking their boxes and still keeping it
Like a decent
legible,
document,
yeah.
Number 2, you asked about the affordable housing, too light, too much, just right. How do you think including new members over the next 10 years or so will be able to use this section? My opinion was it gave options, not mandates. I was fine. So as long as it listed all the options we could take, it didn't tell us we had to do all or some.
Well, yep.
So that was my opinion on that. And then the next one. Is that
Yep.
All right. So question number 3, concerns about the policy language regarding partnerships and collaboration with outside agencies and partners. I don't have any concerns. They're simply recommendations with no specifics, and they meet the countywide planning policy requirements. So I was fine there too.
Okay, yeah, we just don't want to imply that, putting in the comprehensive plan, kind of necessarily, you don't want anybody to, construe that as obligating, the city to partner with anybody in particular.
Okay.
Very good.
The only other thing is I didn't, just a lot of high-profile interactions this week from some other subjects. I didn't have a chance to read through this like I really wanted. And so if, I was kind of joking, I kind of wish Martha Hamilton was sitting at the table. So can I come back to you if there's something of substance that I think, and if you guys think it's of substance, you could just bring it back to the next one, say, hey, there's just one thing. Is that all right?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
Yep.
Then I'm cool. This was good. And what a boatload of work. Thank you. Yeah.
Very good. I just had a couple questions. I mean, is there, I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing either, but are there mandates on lot sizes, on how many units you can put on a lot size? I mean, being up in North Hill, there's 5,000 square foot lots, 50 wide, 100 deep, and putting a duplex on a lot like that, or putting 2 or 3 ADUs on a lot like that would take up the whole lot with a 1,000 square foot house on it, so I would like to know some more information on that kind of, and if that kind of detail is being drilled down in.
That kind of detail is being drilled down as we begin the working on the regulations that'll follow.
Okay.
Yeah, so you still have the ability to have, obviously, minimum lot area. You also still have the ability to have hard surface coverage, which came up during the whole NPDES process.
Right.
So
Yard
that
setbacks and
setbacks and
standards, yeah.
things like that. So, and so I presume there are lots that simply won't be able to support 2 ADUs. But, people get creative too, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
So, we're looking into
We're
that.
looking into that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, perfect, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from
That was
the committee? No. All right. Well, thank you very much. What a great presentation. Looking forward to more coming forward. So there's always more.
Really?
So that concludes our last item on our agenda for the Economic Development Committee. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second?
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.